7 years of working 2 jobs to pay off the mortgage, and I thought I'd reach the happiest day of my life. But the moment I held that paid in full notice in my hands, my unemployed son-in-law smiled and said, "Great, now you can move to the slums." My daughter, the one I raised alone, agreed, "You're a burden." But with just 5 words, I made them both turn pale, and from that moment, the game changed its rules. My name is Margaret Hale, and at 68 years old, I finally held freedom in my hands. The letter from First National Bank of Springfield trembled between my fingers as I read it for the 3rd time, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Your mortgage has been paid in full. 7 years of double shifts, 7 years of aching feet and sleepless nights, and it was done. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd nursed Erin through chickenpox, taught her to bake chocolate chip cookies, and cried alone after her father's funeral. The morning sun streamed through the window I'd replaced myself when money was too tight for a handyman. This house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was every sacrifice I'd ever made, wrapped in white siding and topped with worn shingles. "Derek, Erin!" I called up the stairs, my voice carrying the excitement I couldn't contain. "Come down here. I have wonderful news." I heard the floorboards creak overhead, followed by my son-in-law's heavy footsteps. Derek appeared first, still in his pajamas at 11:30 in the morning, scratching his belly through a stained t-shirt. 5 years he'd been between jobs, though he seemed to have stopped looking after the first 6 months. Erin followed, her hair in a messy bun, wearing the scrubs from her part-time job at the dental office, the one she only worked 3 days a week because, as she put it, Derek needs support during this difficult time. "What's all the noise about Margaret?" Derek yawned, dropping into a chair at my kitchen table, the table where I'd sat countless nights, calculating bills and stretching every dollar. I held up the letter, my hands still shaking with joy. "The house is paid off. I made the final payment last week, and the bank just confirmed it. We own it free and clear." The silence that followed wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined hugs, maybe tears of relief, certainly some acknowledgement of what this meant. Instead, Derek and Erin exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "That's great, Mom," Erin said, but her voice was flat, like I just announced I'd bought a new brand of dish soap. I set the letter on the counter, confusion replacing my excitement. "I thought you'd be happy. This means no more mortgage payments. That's $800 a month we can use for other things. Maybe you two can start saving for your own place." "Our own place?" Derek interrupted, letting out a harsh laugh. "Why would we need our own place when this one's about to be ours?" The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I stared at him, then at my daughter, waiting for her to correct him, to tell him he'd misunderstood something fundamental about how the world worked. But Erin just looked at her hands, picking at her cuticles the way she did when she was 12 and had broken my mother's vase. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said slowly, though a cold knot was already forming in my stomach. Derek leaned back in the chair, my late husband's chair, and smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind that made me think of foxes in hen houses. "Well, it's simple. Really, now that the mortgage is paid off, you don't need to keep killing yourself with those 2 jobs. You can finally relax, maybe move somewhere. Smaller, more manageable for someone your age." "Someone my age?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "You know what he means. Mom." Erin finally spoke up, still not meeting my eyes. "This house is too big for one person. All these stairs, the yard work. It's a lot for you to handle." I looked around my kitchen at the backsplash I'd tiled myself, the curtains I'd sewn on my grandmother's machine, the refrigerator covered in photos of Erin through the years, from gap-toothed first grader to college graduate, every milestone captured and displayed with pride. "But I'm not one person," I said carefully. "We all live here." Derek's smile widened. "Exactly. Which is why it makes sense for us to take over. You could get a nice little apartment at Sunset Manor. They have medical staff on site. Activities for seniors. I work at a nursing home. Derek, I'm not ready to live in one." Don't be dramatic, he said, waving his hand dismissively. It's senior living, not a nursing home. Very different. I turned to my daughter, searching her face for some sign of the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who promised she'd take care of me when I was old. Erin, is this what you want? She finally looked up, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or shame. But it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. It's what's best for everyone, she said quietly. You've done so much for us. Mom, now it's time for you to rest. Rest, as if the past 7 years of working from 6 in the morning at Riverstone Care, then heading straight to my night job cleaning offices at Clearway, had been for my own entertainment. As if I'd chosen to eat peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day so they could order takeout. As if I'd worn the same 3 uniforms in rotation while Erin bought new clothes for Derek because he needs to look presentable for interviews. I picked up the letter from the bank, folding it carefully along its creases. I see. So you'll think about it? Derek asked, already confident of my answer. I looked at them both, my daughter and the man she'd chosen, sitting in my kitchen, planning my exile from my own home, the house I'd fought to keep after my husband died, leaving me pregnant and drowning in medical bills, the house where I'd raised my daughter alone, where I'd stayed up studying for my nursing assistant certification while she slept, where I'd built a life out of sheer determination and love. Oh, I'll think about it, I said, my voice steady despite the storm building inside me. I'll think about it very carefully. The silence that followed my words should have been their first warning, but Derek was too busy mentally redecorating my living room to notice. He stood up, stretched like he owned the place, which apparently he thought he soon would, and headed for the refrigerator. While you're thinking, he said, pulling out the orange juice I'd bought with a coupon, maybe you could pick up some of that good bacon from the butcher shop? The stuff you've been buying is basically cardboard. I watched him drain half the carton in one go, not bothering with a glass. 5 years of this. 5 years of biting my tongue while he criticized my shopping, my cooking, my very existence in my own home. Derek's right, Mom, Erin chimed in, finally finding her voice now that she thought they'd won. This arrangement isn't working for anyone. You're exhausted all the time, and we're cramped here. Once you move out, we can finally turn your bedroom into Derek's office. My bedroom? The words came out as a whisper. For his consulting business, she explained, as if Derek had ever consulted on anything beyond which beer to buy. He needs a professional space to meet clients. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had she become this person? Where was the girl who'd written me Mother's Day cards calling me her hero? The teenager who'd promised she'd never let anyone hurt me the way Dad's death had. A burden, I said quietly. Is that what I am? Erin's face flushed. I didn't mean, no, you meant it. I set down the coffee mug I'd been clutching like a lifeline. A burden. After everything. Derek laughed, actually laughed. Come on, Margaret, don't be so dramatic. Nobody's saying you're a burden. We're trying to help you. Living alone at your age, working those awful jobs. It's not safe. Not safe. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting after the double shift I'd just finished. You know what's not safe? Letting 2 grown adults live off my income while they plan to steal my home? Steal? Derek's face darkened. This house will be Erin's eventually anyway. We're just speeding up the timeline. Speeding up my death? You mean, Mom? Erin gasped, but I caught the way her eyes darted to Derek, checking his reaction first, worrying about his feelings over mine. What else would you call it? I asked. You're sitting in my kitchen, drinking my orange juice, living under my roof, and planning my eviction. Tell me, Derek, when exactly did you decide my home belonged to you? Was it before or after your 5th year of unemployment? His face turned red. I've been looking for the right opportunity. The right opportunity has been living rent-free in my house, eating my food, using my electricity to play video games until 3 in the morning while I work 16-hour days to keep us afloat. Mom, please. Aaron tried to interject. "You're upset. We should talk about this when you've calmed down." I laughed then, a sound I didn't recognize as my own. "Calm down? You want me to calm down? Fine. Let's talk numbers. Since you both seem so good at planning my future, do you know how much I've spent keeping this household running since you moved in? Shall we calculate the groceries, the utilities, the insurance, the property taxes I've paid while you've contributed nothing but criticism?" "We help out," Aaron protested weakly. "You buy pizza once a month and act like you've funded a soup kitchen." I shot back. "Meanwhile, I haven't bought myself a new pair of shoes in 2 years because Derek needed a new gaming system to network with potential clients." Derek slammed the orange juice carton on the counter. "Listen here, old woman, no." The word came out with 40 years of authority I'd earned in hospitals and nursing homes, dealing with people far tougher than this soft, spoiled man-child. "You listen, this is my house. My name on the deed, my sweat and tears in every mortgage payment. And you have the audacity to sit there and tell me to move to some retirement home so you can take over. It's what's best," Erin repeated, but her voice wavered. "Best for who?" I asked. "For the daughter who hasn't paid a bill in 5 years? For the son-in-law who thinks dishwashing is beneath him but living off his mother-in-law's labor is just fine?" The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in with the weight of their betrayal. The refrigerator hummed its familiar tune. The clock ticked toward noon, and outside, Mrs. Patterson was walking her ancient poodle past my window, the window of my house, in my neighborhood, where I'd built my life. "You know what?" Derek said, his voice dripping with the kind of contempt I'd only glimpsed before. "This is exactly why Aaron and I didn't want to tell you our plans yet. We knew you'd be selfish about it." Selfish. I tasted the word, found it bitter. Selfish is working yourself to the bone while 2 capable adults pretend they can't find employment. Selfish is planning to displace the person who's kept a roof over your heads. "Mom," Aaron started. "Don't." I held up my hand. "Just don't. I need you both to hear me clearly. This house is mine, not yours, not ours, mine. And if you think I'm going to hand it over and shuffle off to some assisted living facility so you can play house on my dime, you're even more delusional than I thought." Derek stood up, towering over me in what he probably thought was an intimidating way. "You can't live forever. Margaret, one way or another. This house will be ours." The threat hung between us, ugly and raw. I looked at my daughter, waiting for her to defend me, to tell her husband he'd gone too far, but she just sat there, studying her cuticles again, silent as a grave. "Get out of my kitchen," I said quietly. "What?" Derek blinked. "I said get out of my kitchen, both of you. I need to think, and I can't do it with you here planning my funeral." They left, Derek stomping like a child, Aaron trailing behind him like always. I waited until I heard their bedroom door slam, in my house, the door I'd painted myself, before I let myself sink back into the chair. The letter from the bank lay on the table, wrinkled now from my grip, paid in full. I'd thought those words meant freedom. Instead, they'd revealed a truth I'd been too blind to see. The real debt wasn't monetary. It was the price of learning that love given freely could be repaid with greed. But if they thought I'd earned these calluses and gray hairs just to hand over everything I'd built, they were about to learn that this burden still had some fight left in her. I sat alone in my kitchen, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the linoleum floor I'd scrubbed countless times. The house felt different now, like a crime scene where trust had been murdered. I needed to move, to do something with the anger coursing through my veins, so I did what I always did when life got too heavy. I started cleaning. As I wiped down the counters, my mind drifted back 28 years to a hospital room in Chicago. My husband Tom had been gone 3 hours, and I sat there, 8 months pregnant, wondering how I'd survive. The doctors spoke in hushed tones about bills and insurance, while I pressed my hands against my swollen belly and promised the baby inside that we'd make it somehow. And we had. God, how we'd made it. I remembered bringing Aaron home to this house. Tom's life insurance had barely covered the down payment. Those first years were a blur of formula and diapers bought with coupons, sleepless nights that bled into exhausting days. I'd started at Riverstone Care when Erin was 6 months old, working the early shift so Mrs. Patterson could watch her for less than regular daycare would cost. The night cleaning job came later, when Erin started school and needed things, school supplies, field trip money, clothes that didn't scream charity case. I'd tuck her in at 7:30, wait until 8, then drive across town to empty wastebaskets and scrub toilets until midnight. 4 hours of sleep became my normal. Coffee became my religion. "Mommy, why are you always tired?" 6-year-old Erin had asked once, finding me asleep at the kitchen table over her school permission slips. "Because I love you more than sleep." I'd told her, and she'd giggled, not understanding the literal truth of it. I moved to the living room, dusting the frames that held our history. Erin's first day of kindergarten, I'd sewn her dress myself from a clearance fabric. Her high school graduation, I'd worked 3 doubles in a row to buy her the class ring she wanted. College acceptance day. We'd cried together, her with joy, me with relief that the second job would finally pay off. The wedding photo sat in a silver frame Derek's mother had given them. I stared at it now, remembering how I'd paid for most of the reception because Derek's family couldn't contribute just now. Even then, there'd been signs. The way he'd let me handle the bills while he sampled cake, how he'd complained about the venue being too modest while offering nothing to upgrade it. "He's just stressed about the job market," Erin had said when Derek moved in 3 months after the wedding. "It's temporary." Temporary. 5 years of temporary. I picked up another photo, Erin at her dental assistant graduation. I'd been so proud, thinking she'd finally have her own income, her independence, but Derek had opinions about her working full-time. "It's too stressful for her," he'd explained, helping himself to the pot roast I'd made in the slow cooker before my night shift. "She's sensitive. She needs more balance in her life." Balance. While I worked 16-hour days at 68, the stairs creaked, and I knew without looking it was Derek. He moved through my house like he owned it, heavy-footed, careless. He'd broken 2 of my mother's dishes that way, just bulldozing through life without consideration. I returned to the kitchen and pulled out my old notebook, the one where I'd tracked every penny for years. The pages told a story of sacrifice in dollar signs. Groceries. $400 a month, up from $150 before they moved in. Utilities doubled, cable and internet upgraded to Derek's specifications. The calculations blurred as tears threatened, but I wouldn't cry. Not for them. Instead, I flipped to a clean page and started a new list. Legal aid, locksmith, storage unit. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But it would be fought on my terms, with weapons they didn't know I possessed. 40 years of workplace tenacity, and the kind of stubborn that comes from raising a child alone. My phone buzzed. A text from Erin. "Derek says we should talk about assisted living options. He found some nice places online." I stared at the message, remembering the little girl who'd made me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts and misspelled promises of eternal love. When had that child become this stranger? Had I worked so many hours that I'd missed the transformation? Or had I simply loved her too blindly to see what she was becoming? No, I wouldn't accept the blame for this. I'd given her everything: love, support, opportunity. If she'd chosen to marry a parasite and become one herself, that was her decision. But they wouldn't feast on my corpse. I texted back, "No need, I'm not going anywhere." Then I did something I hadn't done in 7 years. I called in sick for my night shift. Beatrice at Clearway was shocked. I'd worked through flu, a sprained ankle, even a mild concussion from slipping on ice. "Margaret, are you all right? You never miss work." "I'm fine." I lied. "Just need 1 night. I'll be back tomorrow." After hanging up, I sat in Tom's old recliner, the one Derek had been eyeing for the dump, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd need to be strategic. Tonight, I'd mourn the daughter I thought I'd raised and prepare for battle with the strangers living in her place. The house settled around me, creaking its familiar tune, These walls had seen me at my worst and best, had sheltered us through poverty and pain. They'd stood firm through everything life had thrown at us. Tomorrow, they'd witness one more fight, the one for my right to exist in the space I'd carved out of nothing but determination and love. Derek thought I was old and weak, ready to be discarded. Aaron thought I was a burden to be managed. They were both about to learn that a woman who'd survived widowhood, single motherhood, and decades of double shifts didn't break easily. And she sure as hell didn't go down without a fight. Sleep wouldn't come that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan Tom had installed the summer before he died, and listened to the sounds of my house, the water heater clicking on. Derek took 40-minute showers, the television blaring from the living room. He stayed up until 3 or 4 in the morning most nights, the floorboards creaking as Aaron moved between the bedroom and bathroom. At 1:15, I heard their voices drifting up through the heating vent, Derek and Aaron having what they thought was a private conversation in the kitchen below. I discovered this acoustic quirk years ago when Aaron was a teenager, though I'd rarely used it to eavesdrop. Tonight, I lay perfectly still and listened. She's being completely unreasonable. Derek's voice thick with frustration. We give her one simple solution, and she acts like we're trying to murder her. Keep your voice down, Aaron hissed. She might hear you. So what if she does? This is ridiculous. We've been living in this dump for 5 years, waiting. It's not a dump, Aaron interrupted, surprising me. It's my childhood home, which is exactly why it should be ours. You're her daughter, her only family. Who else would she leave it to? The cats she doesn't even have. The refrigerator door opened. Derek again. Probably grabbing the leftover Chinese food I'd paid for but hadn't eaten. Too upset to stomach anything. Maybe we approached it wrong, Aaron said softly. Maybe if we... No. The sound of a chair scraping. We approached it fine. Your mother's just being selfish. Typical boomer, hoarding property while the younger generation struggles. I almost laughed at that. Struggled? They didn't know the meaning of the word. She's not a boomer, Derek. She's 68, and she's worked hard for this house. So what? My parents worked hard too, and they don't have a house to show for it. Life's unfair, but here's our chance to fix that, and she's standing in the way. There was a pause. I could picture Erin doing that thing with her hair, twisting it around her finger when she was thinking. The Sunset Manor place did look nice, she said, finally. They have a pool and bingo nights. Exactly. She'd probably be happier there, around people her own age instead of moldering away in this old house. I don't know. The way she looked at me today. Oh, come on. Derek's voice turned coaxing, the tone he used when he wanted Erin to call in sick so they could go to the beach. She'll get over it. Once she's settled in the new place, she'll probably thank us. We're doing her a favor. Really, this house is too much for her. You're right, Erin agreed, and something in my chest cracked. It is a lot of maintenance. And the stairs. She's not getting any younger. Now you're thinking clearly. Look, here's what we do. We give her a few days to cool off, then hit her with some hard facts. Show her the brochures again. Maybe take her to tour a few places. Once she sees how nice they are, she'll come around. And if she doesn't... Derek paused. I heard him chewing. My food in my house, while planning my eviction. Then we play hardball. She can't live forever. Erin, and when she goes, the house is yours anyway. We're just trying to make the transition easier for everyone. Don't talk like that, Erin said, but there was no real heat in it. I'm being practical. Someone has to be... Your mom's almost 70, working 2 jobs. What happens when she falls at work? Breaks a hip? Can't take care of herself? Then we're stuck dealing with selling the house anyway to pay for her care. Better to handle it now while she can still enjoy a few years at Sunset Manor. I suppose, trust me, babe, in 5 years, we'll be sitting in our renovated living room, and this will all be a distant memory. We could turn that back bedroom into a nursery. A nursery? Erin's voice lifted. Really? Why not? Once we're not paying rent to your mom. Oh, wait. We don't pay rent. Once we're not living under her thumb, we can finally start our real lives. The house has good bones. We could flip it in a few years, make a killing in this market. Flip it. They wanted to flip my house. The place where I'd measured Erin's height on the doorframe every birthday, where Tom had carried me over the threshold as a new bride, where I'd refinished the hardwood floors on my hands and knees while 9 months pregnant because we couldn't afford contractors. She did say she'd think about it. Erin offered. Right, and while she's thinking, we should be planning. I say we start looking at contractors, get some estimates for renovations. That way, when she finally agrees, we can move fast. Derek? What? I'm being proactive. Oh, and we should probably get power of attorney sorted out. You know, in case she becomes unable to make decisions. It's really for her own protection. The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I rolled over, pulling the quilt my mother had made up to my chin, and stared at the wall. They weren't just planning to take my house. They were planning for my incapacity, my death, discussing me like I was already gone. But the worst part? The absolute worst part was Erin's compliance. Not once had she defended me beyond weak protests. Not once had she said, "That's my mother you're talking about." She'd just gone along, letting Derek's poison fill her ears and her heart. At 2:30, I heard them come upstairs. Derek's heavy tread and Erin's lighter step. Their bedroom door closed, and soon Derek's snoring rumbled through the walls. But I lay awake, planning. They thought they were dealing with a weak old woman, too tired to fight back. They were wrong. Tomorrow, I'd start gathering my weapons, legal documents, bank statements, every receipt I'd saved. And somewhere in this city was a lawyer who'd help me protect what was mine. Let them plan their renovations and nurseries. Let them dream of flipping my home for profit while they were counting chickens. I'd be building a fortress, one they'd never breach. The clock on my nightstand ticked toward dawn. In a few hours, I'd have to get up for my shift at Riverstone. But for now, I lay in my bed, in my house, and made my own plans. They wanted to play hardball? They had no idea who they were playing against, a woman who'd buried her husband, raised her child alone, and worked herself to the bone didn't just roll over and die because someone thought it was convenient. Not today, not ever. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I moved through my routine, shower, coffee, uniform, while Derek and Erin slept off their late-night plotting session. By 5:45, I was in my car, but instead of heading to Riverstone, I drove to the 24-hour diner on Maple Street. I needed to think, and I did my best thinking over black coffee and toast. The waitress, Sandra, raised an eyebrow at seeing me there. "Margaret? Shouldn't you be at work?" "Called in sick," I said, sliding into a booth. "Just coffee, please." As I sipped the bitter brew, I pulled out my phone and searched for lawyers. Family law, estate planning, property rights. I needed someone who could help me protect what was mine. After an hour and 3 cups of coffee, I had a list of 5 names. Their offices wouldn't open until 9, but I could wait. At 8:30, I drove home to collect the documents I'd need. The house was quiet. Derek rarely surfaced before noon. I moved carefully through my own home like a thief, gathering papers from the filing cabinet in the basement. The deed, mortgage papers, bank statements, tax returns, evidence of my sole ownership and sole responsibility. That's when I found it. Tucked behind the tax folder was a brochure for Sunset Manor Senior Living, the edges worn from handling, the same place Derek had mentioned last night. But this brochure was date-stamped 3 months ago. They'd been planning this for months. Long before the mortgage was paid off, I sank onto the basement steps, the betrayal hitting fresh. 3 months. While I'd been working double shifts to make that final mortgage payment, they'd been shopping for my replacement home. While I'd been eating sandwiches to save money, they'd been touring facilities where they could warehouse me. A sound from upstairs made me freeze. Footsteps in the kitchen, too light for Derek. Erin was awake. I quietly climbed the stairs, documents clutched to my chest, and found my daughter at the coffee maker. She jumped when she saw me. "Mom, I thought you were at work." "Took a personal day," I said, watching her face carefully. "First one in 7 years." She wouldn't meet my eyes. That's good. You deserve a break. Do I? Yesterday you seemed to think I deserved Sunset Manor. Aaron's face flushed. We were just trying to help. For 3 months? I held up the brochure. This is dated January. You've been planning to get rid of me since January? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. It's not. We weren't. Save it. I moved past her to grab my purse. I have appointments. Appointments? What kind of appointments? I turned at the door, looking at the daughter I no longer recognized, the kind that makes sure you and Derek understand exactly whose name is on this deed. Mom, you're overreacting. We just want what's best. No, Aaron, you want what's best for you. There's a difference, though you seem to have forgotten that. I left her standing there and drove to the first lawyer on my list. Robert Morrison. Estate planning and elder law. His office smelled like leather and old books, and his handshake was firm. Mrs. Hale, how can I help you today? I laid out the situation, the paid-off mortgage, the conversation I'd overheard, the months of planning behind my back. Mr. Morrison listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes. First, he said when I finished, let me assure you that your house is yours. Your daughter has no legal claim to it while you're living, and you can dispose of it however you wish. They seem to think otherwise. He smiled grimly. What people think and what the law says are often different things. Now, let's talk about protecting your assets. For the next 2 hours, we discussed options. A will that specifically excluded them if they continued this behavior. A revocable trust that would protect the house from any attempts to manipulate me. Power of attorney assigned to someone other than Aaron, perhaps a trusted friend or professional fiduciary. I'd also suggest changing your locks, he added, and installing security cameras. Document any threats or harassment. If they escalate, we can pursue a restraining order. Against my own daughter? I've seen worse. Mrs. Hale. Family disputes over property can turn ugly. Better to be prepared. I wrote a check for the retainer, my hand steady despite the storm inside. This was really happening. I was hiring a lawyer to protect myself from my own child. As I drove home, I stopped at a locksmith shop. The young man behind the counter promised to come by tomorrow while Derek and Aaron were out. Changing locks is common, he assured me. You wouldn't believe the stories I hear. I believe them now. When I got home, Derek's car was gone, a small mercy. But taped to my bedroom door was a note in Aaron's handwriting. Went to look at some places for you. Be back later. We love you. Love. They had a funny way of showing it. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Then I sat at my desk and began making a list. Bank accounts to change, beneficiaries to update, a lifetime of assuming Aaron would inherit everything. Now being systematically undone. My phone rang. Riverstone. Probably wondering if I'd be in tomorrow. But when I answered, it was Beatrice from the cleaning service. Margaret, honey, I heard you called in sick. In 7 years. You've never... Is everything okay? The concern in her voice nearly broke me. I'm dealing with some family issues, I managed. Oh, honey, anything I can do? Actually, I said, an idea forming. Do you know any good estate lawyers? My cousin used someone when her kids got greedy after her husband died. Let me get you the number. As she looked for it, I realized something. I had allies. Not many, but some. People who'd watched me work myself to the bone, who knew my character. If Derek and Aaron wanted to paint me as a selfish old woman who needed to be managed, they'd have to convince more than just each other. Found it. Beatrice gave me the information. And Margaret, whatever's going on, you stand your ground. You're the strongest woman I know. After we hung up, I sat in my empty house, my house, and felt something shift. The hurt was still there, raw and bleeding, but underneath it, something else was growing. Not just anger, but determination. They thought I was old and weak, ready to be shuffled off to make room for their dreams. They were about to learn that a woman who'd survived everything I had didn't go down easy. And she sure as hell didn't go down without teaching them the price of betrayal. They came home at 6:30. arms full of glossy brochures and fake enthusiasm. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my legal documents spread before me like armor. Derek's smile faltered when he saw the papers. "What's all this?" he asked, setting down what looked like a folder from Sunset Manor. "Homework," I said calmly. "Sit down, both of you." Aaron glanced at Derek nervously. "Mom, we found some really nice places." I said, "Sit down." Something in my voice must have cut through their rehearsed pitch because they sat. Derek slouched in his chair like a sullen teenager, while Aaron perched on the edge of hers, ready to flee. "Let me make something crystal clear," I began, my hands folded over the deed to my house. "This house is mine, not ours, not the family's, mine. My name alone is on this deed. My credit alone secured the mortgage. My income alone paid for it." "Mom, I'm not finished. Aaron," and I pulled out the bank statements. "In the 5 years you've lived here, you've contributed exactly $3,400 to household expenses. That averages out to $56 a month. Derek has contributed $0. Derek's face reddened. "I've been looking for work." "No. You've been playing video games and eating my food while making excuse after excuse. But that ends now." I slid a typed document across the table. "This is a rental agreement. If you want to continue living in my house, you'll sign it. Rent is $500 a month. Due on the 1st, utilities will be split 3 ways. You'll each be responsible for your own food." "Rent?" Derek sputtered. "You want us to pay rent? I want you to pay something, anything like adults do." "This is ridiculous," he said, pushing the paper away. "We're family. Family doesn't plot to steal houses," I shot back. "Family doesn't shop for nursing homes behind someone's back. Family doesn't call the person supporting them a burden." Aaron's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, we never meant—" "You meant every word. I heard you last night, planning renovations, talking about flipping my house, discussing my death like it was a minor inconvenience to your plans." The color drained from both their faces. "The heating vent," I explained. "It carries sound from the kitchen to my bedroom. Didn't you wonder why I always knew when you snuck out in high school? Aaron, you eavesdropped. I listened to 2 people planning to rob me while eating my food under my roof. Call it what you want." Derek stood up, knocking his chair back. "This is insane. Aaron, we're not signing anything. She can't evict us." "Actually, I can." I pulled out another document. "This is a notice to quit. You have 30 days to either sign the rental agreement and start paying or find somewhere else to live." "You wouldn't dare," Derek said. "Try me." "Mom, please," Aaron pleaded. "This is our home too." "No, Aaron, it's not. It's my home that I've allowed you to live in. There's a difference, and it's time you learned it." I stood up, gathering my papers. "You have a choice to make. You can be tenants who pay their way, or you can find your own place. But the free ride is over." "And if we refuse?" Derek challenged. "Then I'll follow through with legal eviction proceedings. My lawyer says it's quite straightforward since you've never paid rent or had any formal agreement." "Your lawyer?" Aaron gasped. "Robert Morrison, lovely man, very helpful in explaining my rights as a property owner." Derek grabbed Aaron's arm. "Come on, we don't have to listen to this." But Aaron pulled away. "Wait, Mom, what if we can't afford $500 a month?" I looked at my daughter, searching for any sign of the child I'd raised. "Then you'd better find jobs, both of you, within 30 days. That's not enough time. I found a job in 2 days after your father died, while pregnant. Stop making excuses and start making efforts." Derek laughed bitterly. "This is about control. You can't stand that we were making plans for the future. Your future? In my house? Without my consent? You're right, I can't stand that." "So what happens to family helping family?" Aaron asked quietly. "It died the moment you called me a burden and tried to push me out of my own home." I headed for the stairs, then turned back. "Oh, and Derek, the locksmith comes tomorrow. You'll need to return your keys before he arrives." "You're changing the locks?" He looked incredulous. "My house. My locks. If you sign the rental agreement and pay your deposit, you'll get new keys. If not—" I shrugged. "This is elder abuse," Derek said. "We could report you." Laughed, a real laugh this time. "For what?" Expecting rent? Requiring adults to support themselves? Good luck with that. Mom, Erin said, tears now streaming down her face. How can you do this to us? I paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at them, these strangers wearing familiar faces. The same way you plan to do it to me. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. That's more than you offered me. Fine, Derek spat. We'll sign your stupid agreement, but don't expect things to go back to normal. Normal? I turned fully to face them. Normal was me killing myself to support two capable adults who plotted behind my back. I don't want normal. I want fair. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, in my house, and locked the door behind me. Through the floor, I could hear them arguing, Derek's voice angry, Erin's tearful. But I felt no satisfaction, only a deep weariness. Tomorrow would bring new battles. They might sign the agreement or they might leave. They might try to guilt me or threaten me or wear me down with tears and accusations. But tonight, for the first time in years, I'd stood up for myself, and that, at least, was a start. The first week after the ultimatum was a cold war in my own home. Derek and Erin signed the rental agreement, but their signatures came with silent treatment and slammed doors. They paid the deposit, scraped together from their savings. Derek made sure to mention loudly, and received their new keys from the locksmith with barely concealed fury. But something interesting happened by week 2. Erin started leaving the house at 8 in the morning, dressed in her dental assistant scrubs. When I asked, she mumbled that she'd picked up extra shifts at the clinic. They needed someone full-time, she said, not meeting my eyes. Doctor, Patterson was happy to have me. Derek, however, dug in his heels. He made a show of job hunting, leaving his laptop open to job sites, talking loudly on the phone about opportunities. But I noticed he was usually playing solitaire when he thought I wasn't looking. The real shift came on a Thursday evening. I was cooking dinner for myself, a small piece of salmon and vegetables, when Erin appeared in the kitchen doorway. Mom, can we talk? I nodded toward the chair across from me. Of course. She sat down, twisting her wedding ring nervously. I've been thinking about what you said, about Dad, about how you found a job so quickly after he died. What about it? Tell me about that time. Please. I was too young to remember much. I set down my fork, studying my daughter's face. For the first time in weeks, she seemed genuinely interested, not calculating. Your father died on a Tuesday. I began. By Thursday, I was interviewing at Riverstone. I couldn't afford to grieve, not with you coming and bills piling up. The funeral director actually helped. He knew they needed aides at the care facility. Weren't you scared? Terrified. I'd never worked in healthcare, but being scared doesn't pay the mortgage. Erin was quiet for a moment. I found something today. In Derek's browser history. I waited. He's been on gaming forums all day. Not job sites. He was actually bragging about his strategy to get us this house. Her voice cracked. He called you. Things I won't repeat. I see. I'm 32 years old, and she continued, tears starting to fall. And I just realized I married someone who's been using us both. Using you for a free ride. Using me for, I don't know. My connection to this house? Erin, no, please. Let me finish. When Dad died, you could have given up. Could have moved in with Grandma. Gone on welfare. Found another man to take care of us. But you didn't. You worked 2 jobs for 28 years. And I repaid you by... She couldn't finish. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're still my daughter. That hasn't changed. How can you say that? After what I did, what I said? Because love doesn't end with betrayal. It just changes shape. We heard Derek's footsteps on the stairs, heavy and aggressive. He appeared in the doorway, saw us holding hands, and scowled. Great. Mother-daughter bonding time. How sweet. Derek, Erin said quietly, show Mom the job applications you submitted today. His face darkened. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. You haven't applied to a single job, have you? The market's tough right now. Stop. Erin stood up. Just stop. The market's been tough for 5 years? No, you're lazy, and I enabled you because I was lazy too. Babe, you're upset. Your mother's poisoning you against me. My mother's showing me what an adult looks like. Something I should have seen years ago. Derek stepped forward aggressively. You need to remember whose side you're on. Erin. I'm on the side of the person who worked herself to the bone while we sat around planning to steal her house. We weren't stealing. We were. Erin's voice was firm now. We were stealing her security, her retirement, her home. And for what? So you could have a gaming room? Derek's face went from red to purple. Fine. Take her side. But when she's old and senile, drooling in some nursing home, don't come crying to me. Get out, I said quietly. He turned on me. You can't evict me. I paid rent. You threatened me in my own kitchen. That's grounds for immediate termination of the rental agreement. Would you like me to call the police? He looked between us, calculating. Then, without warning, he swept his arm across the counter, sending my dinner crashing to the floor. This isn't over, he snarled, then stormed out. Erin immediately knelt to clean up the mess, but I stopped her. Leave it. We need to document this. As I took photos of the broken dishes and scattered food, Erin sank into a chair. I don't know what I ever saw in him. He wasn't always like this, I offered, or maybe he hid it better. No, he was... I wanted someone to take care of me, like you always had. I thought that's what marriage was, finding someone to handle the hard stuff so I didn't have to. And now? She looked at me with eyes that seemed clearer than they'd been in years. Now I think maybe it's time I learned to take care of myself, and maybe start taking care of you for a change. That night, Derek packed his things, making as much noise as possible. He broke 2 picture frames accidentally and left gouges in the hallway wall with his suitcase. All documented, all photographed. As his car pulled away, Erin and I stood at the window watching. I'll file for divorce tomorrow, she said quietly. I'll go with you if you'd like. I'd like that. She paused. Mom, I'm sorry for everything. I know. Can we start over? I'll pay rent, work full-time, help with the house, really help, not just pretend. I put my arm around my daughter, the first real embrace we'd shared in years. We can try. The house felt different with Derek gone. Lighter, somehow cleaner. That night, Erin and I ate scrambled eggs at the kitchen table, talking until midnight about everything and nothing, about her father, about my years of work, about dreams deferred and lessons learned. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight, but it was a beginning, and sometimes that's enough. 3 weeks after Derek's dramatic exit, I came home from my morning shift to find Erin in the living room, surrounded by boxes and cleaning supplies. The carpet was shampooed, the windows sparkled, and she was on her knees scrubbing baseboards I'd forgotten were white. What's all this? I asked, setting down my purse. She sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her forehead. Spring cleaning, or technically fall cleaning, I guess. I found 3 years' worth of Derek's junk in the garage. Did you know he had 4 gaming systems? 4? I try not to go in the garage, I admitted. Well, I'm donating them, along with anything else he left behind. She stood, stretching her back. Also, I have something to show you. She led me to the kitchen table, where several documents lay spread out. My divorce papers are filed, and this, she pointed to an official-looking form, is my application for the dental hygienist program at the community college. If I'm going to work in the field, I might as well advance. Erin, that's wonderful, but the tuition, I'll manage. Student loans, payment plans, whatever it takes. I'm 32. Mom, it's time I invested in myself instead of waiting for someone else to do it. I felt tears prick my eyes but blinked them back. Your father would be proud. I hope so. She gathered the papers carefully. Oh, and I have a job interview tomorrow. The orthodontist across town is looking for a full-time assistant, better pay, better hours. That evening, as we cooked dinner together, really together, not just me cooking while she scrolled her phone, Erin asked, "Do you ever regret giving us that ultimatum?" I considered while chopping carrots. I regret that it was necessary, but no, I don't regret doing it. Even though it cost you Derek as a son-in-law? Derek cost me Derek as a son-in-law the moment he suggested I move to a nursing home so he could take my house. She laughed, a real laugh, not the brittle sound I'd grown accustomed to. Fair point. You know what's funny? I actually feel freer now than I have in years. Is that weird? Not at all. There's freedom and responsibility. Strange as that sounds. We worked in comfortable silence for a while before Aaron spoke again. I've been thinking about what you said, about love changing shape after betrayal. Oh, I want to earn your trust back. Mom, not just your love. I know you never stopped loving me, but your trust, your respect. I put down the knife and turned to face her. You're already earning it. Every day you get up for work, every rent check you write, every honest conversation we have, you're earning it. It doesn't feel like enough, not after... She gestured vaguely. Aaron, listen to me. I worked 2 jobs for 28 years. Not because I expected a medal or eternal gratitude, but because that's what needed to be done. You're doing what needs to be done now. That's enough. She hugged me then, fierce and sudden, and I felt her tears on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know, I whispered back. I know. A month later, Derek called Aaron 15 times in one day, alternating between begging her to take him back and threatening to contest the divorce. She blocked his number and hired a lawyer with her own money. The same week, she got the orthodontist job and enrolled in night classes. 6 months after that day, I'd held the mortgage papers. I sat in my living room, watching Aaron study at the dining table. She was highlighting textbooks, occasionally asking me questions about medical terminology from my years at Riverstone. Mom, she said during a study break, I've been thinking, when I finish this program and get established in my career, maybe we could travel somewhere, take a real vacation. When was the last time you went anywhere just for fun? I couldn't remember. That sounds nice. Good, because you deserve it. You deserve so much more than you've gotten. I have my house, I said, looking around at the walls that had witnessed so much. I have my dignity, and I have my daughter back. That's more than enough. Erin smiled, then returned to her books. I picked up my knitting, a hobby I'd just started now that I could afford yarn, and we sat in companionable silence as the evening deepened. The house was quiet now, but it was a different quiet than before. Not the tense silence of resentment and plotting, but the peaceful quiet of 2 people rebuilding their lives and their relationship, one day at a time. Outside, Mrs. Patterson walked by with her ancient poodle, waving when she saw me through the window. I waved back, then glanced at the spot on the mantel where the paid-off mortgage notice sat in a simple frame, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the hardest battles aren't with banks or bills, but with the people we love most, that sometimes we have to fight for our own dignity, even when, especially when, it means standing up to family, and that sometimes, if we're very lucky, those battles can lead to something better than what we had before. My name is Margaret Hale. I'm 68 years old. I own my home free and clear, and I'm no one's burden. I'm a mother, a worker, a survivor. And for the first time in years, I'm content. The mortgage was paid, the house was mine, and life, finally, was good. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect with each other. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Margaret's situation? I read every comment and would love to hear your perspective. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.